And with that, so the bulk of our meeting is going to be the U.S. Census Bureau's presentation. After that, we'll do what's coming up next. And then there's a few local job postings that we'll share just to get reach out there. So with that, our first, we have two presenters. We have Ryan and Gerson. Thank you for joining us. So Ryan is a data visualization lead for the Census Bureau. He began working with them in 2009. Both Ryan and Gerson work to create a better public understanding of the complex demographic and socioeconomic data. That's a hard word to say. With data visualization, they have, you might have seen different visualizations on census.gov or Tableau Public. So Ryan lives in Minneapolis. And then we have Gerson, who has over 23 years of experience in communications. And he's joining us from Georgia. Oh, sorry, that's a teaser for the next one. So with that, guys, I'm gonna pass it off to you and let you take over.
Thank you very much. This is Gerson Vásquez, and yes, been with the census since 2008. Ryan's been there since 2009, and we joined right before the 2010 census as partnership specialists, which basically was to promote participation in the 2010 census. And if you're keeping track, of course, we have the 2020 census that we just completed, which, you know, it was just a totally normal year in 2020. There wasn't anything weird going on. So it was super easy to conduct a census. And of course, that's not true because we had a lot of challenges. But luckily, we got through it and we're on the other side of it. And we get to start looking at some of the data and the data visualizations, of course, that come from that. So today we're going to go over some things about visualizing census data and what's available. Ryan?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ryan. Pardon my accent. Sometimes I get all Minnesotan on you. I'm calling in from Minneapolis. I've been with the Census Bureau for quite a long time, but I've got a pretty extensive career working in data, going back to a lot of political campaign work and list enhancements and things like that. And Gerson and I have been really involved with Tableau for several years now, especially even working with Tableau Corporate and helping to, kind of bridge this business intelligence platform into something that can work better for our customers. So we've been met with the folks in Seattle several times, and hopefully on behalf of our customers, we've been able to make it a little bit more accessible to folks who use it for demographic and socioeconomic data visualization. So it's really exciting to be here. Got to admit, it's my first time I've ever seen somebody in a census presentation that we've done that's sitting on the beach. So definitely hats off to you. So we can go ahead and get started.
That's a pro move.
Definitely. So we just want to quickly give you a little background on some of the visualization projects we've done recently. And then we want to jump right into some pretty cool ways that we think that can help you pull census data into some of the existing work that you do or some work you might be doing in the future. And then also at the same time offer the ability for us to continue our agency, maybe not us specifically, it might be us, to work with you to help your data journey with census. We have over 130 surveys and censuses that we conduct annually or every 10 years or in different phases of time throughout each decade. So there's a lot of data there. Some of it you probably don't know, it's collected by us. So there's a lot to learn. We obviously can't teach that in the next about 48 minutes or so. So we're going to just kind of focus mostly on the American Community Survey. But as Gerson said, that big one, that decennial census, a lot of data is about to be coming out from that too. Gerson?
And just so people kind of keep aware, we will be fielding questions at different points. And especially if you want to drop a question in the chat, I have already started to post some links in there to things like our Census Bureau Tableau public page, and I'll be dropping other links as we go over some different things.
Cool. And this, just a warning, we are very anti-PowerPoint. the two of us. I can speak for him. We've been working together for almost a decade. And so this is going to be mostly a live demo. So we're just going to show you a couple slides here. So, but if you want the slides, certainly feel free to reach out to the TUG group or to us individually, and we can certainly send you the slides. So on this slide, it's just kind of a quick snapshot of some of the recent data visualization projects that we've worked on. And we'll just kind of give you a little bit of a taste of those. I'll run through most of these are available on Tableau Public. You'll see that on the Census Bureau's Tableau Public page. There's only, like 25 vises, but if you go on the Census Bureau's Data Viz Gallery, you'll see hundreds of Tableau vises. Most of these are not authored by Gerson and I. Most of these, we have 250 licenses within our building. So it's really grown exponentially at the Census Bureau over the last several years, but we'll just focus on a couple that we've done because we like what we've done. But we'll start off here with a really quick and easy one that we did. It's this demographic analysis estimates. We were very surprised by this one. If you look down here, this one got 200,000 views. We probably expected it to get somewhere around 10,000. So this is a very popular visualization. What it does is it shows over time, just what do we call this, Gerson?
The demographic analysis estimates.
Yeah, what do we call this chart type? I forgot. We had a fun name for it, like a reverse area chart.
You put me on the spot, so now like an anamorphic area chart. I don't know.
Yeah. But what it does is it really tracks like the proportion of the population of two specific generations, millennials and baby boomers, and how their proportion of the population has changed over each given census year. You can also track that by a couple different racial groups, the non-Black alone population, as well as the Black alone population. And you can look at, again, with each one, the proportion of the population with each over time. And then you can even kind of look as your age groups. You can kind of look at, if you want to be morbid, you can look at how few of your age group is left from 2000 to 2020. That's what somebody pointed out to me. I thought that was kind of funny. So you can kind of see how the population's changing in just a quick visualization. What was fun for us with this one is that it was our first one we got to use animation. So this was way back when I think 2020.2 was released. So we were really excited to be able to kind of incorporate that. And that might have been part of the reason it got a lot of hits. Another one, and I'm just going to quick run through these because this is not really germane to our presentation. Just want to show you some of the work we do. This one is really basic. It's probably the most basic one we've ever done, and it's this where Irish eyes are smiling. Gerson, do you want to give a little anecdote about why we did this?
Sure. I mean, it started several years back, probably 2016, I think. Where we were actually having a meeting, the director of the Census Bureau at the time, John Thompson, and our associate director of communications with CNN, because they were in Atlanta and I'm based out of Atlanta. And CNN really liked the fact that we put out this PDF, but it was just a PDF. It wasn't interactive in any way. And we started kind of planting the seed back then that, hey, why don't we make this interactive? And CNN loved that idea, and we loved that idea, but it took a few years to come to fruition just because of, government sometimes doesn't move all that quick. But when we decided to just plot the ancestry, because this just comes from our ancestry data, and take it a step further, because the PDF only showed states. And then at one point, I think they got down to counties. But we were kind of pushing in that direction, because one of the things we like to do is to push the capabilities of quickly visualizing data in a map format like this that really lets people go down to a local level. Because like CNN and other news outlets were telling us, hey, it's great to know what the state ancestry is, but if I'm doing a story on Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, or my city or my state, you really want to try to localize, especially if the data is available at that local level. So that's what you'll see Ryan and I and a lot of Census Bureau visualizers try to do. If the data is available at lower lying geographic areas, why not take it to that level and allow people to navigate as far down as they want? And you'll see a lot of that in our design, where we start maybe at the state level, but then you can click into the county and in some cases the tract level. And if you're not familiar with census tracts, they're ranged by about 4,000 to 8,000 people. per census tract, and there's over 70,000 in the nation. So, you know, it's good size for like really getting into the nitty gritty. So that was really something that we like to do. And this one was also pretty popular as far as views and people clicking through.
Yeah, like I mentioned that this one, so the PDF, the one that we did was usually when we look at our internal web analytics, it would get in the range of 1,000 to 6,000 clicks per year. And it was something that was just kind of, we put out every year. Well, this one hit 75,000 just on Tableau Public. And it was also screenshots of it were run in several newspapers, I think, you know, ranging from, you know, the Seattle Times to the Boston Globe, because it was able to, you know, drill down and localize the data really well. So again, maybe not super germane to the work you do, but I want to just give the understanding, and so does Gerson, that, you know, all of our data can be extremely localized, and our example today will show that. So moving on, just one or maybe two more quick visualizations we'll run through. This one here received, based on our, you know, our server with Accenture, as well as which is our contractor we worked with, as well as Tableau Public, got over about 7 million views. And this was, it goes all the way down to the census tract level to show on a day-by-day basis throughout the census how well we were doing in collecting responses to the 2020 census. So you can just simply click on a state. You're gonna get that information. You can drill down through this filter here, which also will help you teach you about census geography. So you can go from the state to the county. Let me see if I can find Orange County here for Orlando. I'll do a lot of picking on Orange County today. So there's Orange County, and now I can click on the census tract, and then I can see, and this is the final response rate, but day by day throughout the 2020 census, community partners, some of you may be on this call, were able to look at this visualization that we created to see exactly which areas were doing very well and which areas might have needed a little bit more of our attention in terms of response. And this was extremely helpful and popular throughout, you know, the extremely long process of the data collection period of the 2020 census.
And one thing I wanted to bring up on this visualization that really started to shift our approach was really a dedicated approach to the mobile design. You know, if anybody, obviously people on this call have worked with Tableau, you know, mobile design is something that's kind of tricky sometimes, especially if you're trying to design after the fact or trying to fit a lot from the desktop dashboard views into a mobile. You understand right away that there are some limitations. And Ryan was really, and this is one of his best qualities, but it's going to really sound negative. He was really pig-headed about this one. He really would not let it go because he really wanted the mobile to work. And he was able to do so and get it down to the census tract level. And that also allowed for people on their mobile device to geolocate themselves. So when they were out in the field doing work or advocacy to promote the 2020 census, they were able to pull up the tract they were in by using the mobile approach. Where we see across the government space, so many people just either ignore or leave it on automatically rendering the mobile design, and that leads to lower views. And we have a lot of proof of that in our metrics. Ryan, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's great. I think it kind of sums this up. Again, we can localize some census data all the way down to the census tract. And then what's even lower than that is the census block group level, which is from that kind of 4,000 neighborhood approach to about the 1,000 collection of census blocks. And then census blocks are about 100 people. And you'll be hearing a lot more about that as we move towards the release of the 2020 census data, beginning to roll out this August and all the way out through the rest of the year. So moving on to one final visualization. This one we just recently completed, and this was the apportionment visualization that we did that showed the first results of the 2020 census. Again, kind of goes data through over time. If you wanted a quick check on Florida and see how Florida's congressional seats have changed over time, you can see with our little lollipops here, you can see Florida's generally gained every single census, with the exception of 1920, in which year really nobody gained any because of congressional rules that year. But you know, it goes through a whole bunch of different tabs and parameters for you able to look at different ways to look at, again, we were just kind of ripping on state level data, but we found a way to make it maybe a little bit more interesting by adding the time series and, 4 really different key variables to look at, such as population change, population density, as well as the makeup of Congress. So, and that these all can be viewed on our Census Bureau's Tableau public page, and we encourage you to, like it and follow it as we move forward.
Yeah, and just to add one more point to that, it's basically look for more release in August and September of this year of the 2020 census data at more localized levels. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So moving on, we're going to get to kind of the nuts and bolts of this presentation, where it's just about visualizing census data. So we kind of covered this for the most part, like, how we think it really is impactful and what we've learned over the several years we've been working with data visualization at the Census Bureau. But one of the challenges that we have come across for a lot of customers, especially those of you on this call, is there's a lack of knowledge of the enormity of the data that we have available, as well as how to get it, because it has changed drastically over time. So right now, I'd like to just kind of give a little bit of a, an overview of, how to access census data. And I'm just going to show you a couple quick websites. And this, my share bar from Zoom always gets in the way. But the first one here is data.census.gov. We're not going to go into much detail on this, but for those of you in the call, some of you might remember, microfiche is a way to get census data, statistical abstracts, CD-ROMs, or even American Fact Finder. American Fact Finder was our most recent data dissemination tool, and that was sunsetted. Gerson, was that about 2 years ago?
Yeah, it seems like an eternity ago now, but yes,
That's
maybe
it.
3.
Yeah, I missed it. I know that. But the new one is data.census.gov. It's gradually building up more steam and capability, and I encourage you to check it out. And Gerson, do you want to mention how they can get training locally?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start dropping some links in the chat. Basically, you can access our network of data dissemination specialists, which is actually what Ryan and I used to do right before we moved into this visualization space and specialized a little bit more. Our data dissemination team has a lot of experience in accessing data sets across the Census Bureau's many products. So they're a good resource to have if you're having trouble finding things or just want to refine things or just ask if something's available. And I'll drop a couple of things like the generalized email address for census.askdata@census.gov, where you can start a query that somebody will get on, hopefully in your area. We haven't spread throughout the nation. A little short staff now, but we have some staff coming back from decennial. So we have several throughout the nation. I think what's our staff up to, like 30 or so, 28?
Yeah.
And so they're a great resource to have to explore all these options. We're not going to get too much into this because we're more into the kind of the power pools, the API type pools, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Actually, right now. So Gerson and I have been really focused on, so what data.census.gov draws from is the API, the application programming interface, and why we made the switch from Fact Finder to data.census.gov was to have all of our data run from a single API. We had multiple APIs within the Census Bureau. So now all of our data tools and applications generally at Census Bureau draw from one singular API. So we kind of want to teach folks how to draw from that API as well and not have to go through whatever, barrier or tool that kind of presets the data for them, because we know that a lot of the customers we work with are very experienced in using APIs or doing a little bit of coding. So this is a census.gov/developers is a way to get to this page. It's a list of all of the, I don't know why this is stuck there. It's a list of all of the APIs that we have available from the census. One thing I want to just point out as we move into our demo and how to pull some data from a different tool is that we're going to focus today, like I said before, on the American Community Survey. two key numbers I want everybody to keep in mind with the American Community Survey. Aside from how large it is, it's a very large survey. It samples nearly 3.5 million households annually, or 250,000 households per month. So it's a very large survey. If you think of how much reliance we put on, electoral polling, this is a very large sample. So the American Community Survey 1-year sample is for all geographies, and you can think of the city you are in right now, or if you think of the congressional districts or the county or the state, of course, all states are over 65,000. We do a 1-year sample. So the previous 12 months of data is sampled together to produce an estimate for that one single year. So the larger the geography, the more reliable that sample will be for us based on the threshold of how we collected the data. What we also provide is what's called the American Community Survey 5-year sample. And that's for all geographies that we offer data that's not suppressed yet. So that would also include geographies over 65,000, but that would also include small geographies like we mentioned earlier, census tracts, some small counties, small cities that are 4,400. Really we do our best. Just understand that when you're working with the 5-year data, that the margin of error does drastically increase the smaller the geography that you're working with. So just a little bit there, just keep in mind the 1 year and the 5-year. 5-year is 5 years of data, 60 months of sample data pooled together to produce an estimate. Anything to add, Gerson, on that?
No, actually, we got a question on census tract areas if they were available in Tableau. And I said it's not native to Tableau, but I don't want to spoil your surprise. So let's go ahead and move with that example.
Sure. So just one last thing to finalize here. There's a whole lot of information on how, what an API endpoint call is with this survey. Why we push the API so much is that data.census.gov, just like FactFinder before, will preset tables for you. So let's just say you wanted 5 different variables that were on different tables. You would have to download 5 tables, merge them together yourself. What the API offers the flexibility of you doing is being able to do 2 things: automate your call and also customize exactly what it is you want to see and what you want to download. Because sometimes, we don't want to have some census tables can have hundreds and hundreds of columns. So you will not necessarily want to bring all of those into a Tableau visualization, have to do all of that unnecessary prep. So that's one of the reasons we really push this. So more information, you can find it through here. But what we really want to do is kind of go back to the Census Bureau's Tableau public page and show you our example that what we have, which is using the Census API extract creator. And I'm sure Gerson's going to be sharing this in the track or in the chat. But one reason we did this is that we were working actually with Tableau at a visathon in Austin, Texas. And we were teaching folks this kind of old-fashioned way of creating an API endpoint call, and it was not working well for anybody. It went well, but we just thought things could be better. So what Gerson and I did is about a week after, I remember I was sitting at a Starbucks and we were just chatting over a webinar just like this. And we kind of built this Census API extract creator. So what's cool about this, it's still in beta format, but what it does is, as you can see on here, there's over 135,000 variables within the American Community Survey alone. So understanding what's there, obviously I can't even tell you everything that's in the ACS. But what you can do with this is quickly create an API endpoint call. And what that'll do is produce what's called a JSON payload, which is just another type of document. Tableau can read them. I don't like using JSONs because I don't think they import them as well as they could, especially at least our format. So I just convert them to a CSV after that. So that's going to be the crux of this example. We had a lot of questions come in about what people wanted to get from this call. Some were based on real estate and everything else. So our example today is going to be this sort of Julia Child approach. We've already pre-baked a Tableau workbook as well as done some data prep and done the download, but we're going to walk through the steps and how we do all of that right here so that those of you on the call, if you want to grab some census data and some shape files and maps and build visualizations and add it to the work that you're doing, hopefully this will be a good tool that you can use, because I think this works really well for Tableau developers. So what I've done is here on the main menu is I've just gone to data profiles, and you can see a little bit of information about each one in the tooltip. Just data profiles contains broad socioeconomic information. What I look at this is that it's going to be kind of everything. You know, it's going to be a lot of estimates and percentages, whereas detailed tables are going to be a lot of just estimates, so just raw numbers. Subject tables are going to be really categorized by subject areas, and they're going to provide, again, some estimates, but mostly percentages. So data profiles kind of is a hybrid of both of them that I think is very helpful for developers. Gerson, do you have anything to add before I move on to the demo?
No, you go on. You go on ahead, buddy.
All right. So very basic platform. I know it's not the prettiest visualization we've created, but it's not meant to be. And we have plans to drastically improve and add more capabilities to this, including more data sets in the very near future. So stay tuned for that. But all it is here is just a bunch of drop boxes that pull all of the variables. So let's just say in the case that I said we're going to talk about income, I can, start with this first category on data profiles and just type in income because it's one of the categories there. And I can just select income and benefits. And what that'll do is that'll just filter all of the variables that are available, because you're not going to want to look at all of the variables in income and benefits. I think I have multiple values selected. I must have.
Yeah, click the all. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Unclick the all and then click income and benefits. There we go. And then here are all the variables that we have that are related to income. And what I want to focus on this is just median household income. So I'm going to look, we have median family income, and that's different than a household. Some households are not families. So we're just going to look at household income. So I'm going to look at median household income. Let me see if I can find that right here. And I'm just going to check that box. And I'm going to get right away, because of the defaults that are set with how the visualization was saved. I have estimate, margin of error, percentage, margin of error. Well, in this case, I don't need a percent estimate. It'll actually give me some data, but it'll probably either just be a repeat of the whole number. But I just want to kind of clean up what my output's going to be. So I'm just going to in this case, take estimate, margin of error. If you want a percentage, if you want to keep it clicked, it's not going to break it. So I've checked those two boxes. I mentioned earlier that you really want to keep focused on, ACS 1 year or 5 year. What I want to do is I want to look at all of the census tracts and build a visualization for all the census tracts in Florida and look at median household income at that level. So all I'm going to do is click ACS 5, and that's going to pull the 5-year data set. And then I don't know Florida's FIPS code, and because of the way the parameters set up in Tableau, I need to have a FIPS code to pull this from the API. So I'm just going to do this visit tooltip and look at Florida is state FIPS code 12. So I'm going to select state 12. And then my geotype, I want to look at census tract. So I'm just going to pull census tract and then my year 2019. So I've set all my parameters there. And then really all I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag to highlight both of those, because I'll make sure I want to take in the margin of error, because again, I'm working at the census tract level, and some census tracts can be very small. So we want to make sure that we're not putting too much stock into an area that might be reporting, an income that could be, have a wide range, for example. And then I'm just going to go down here and click Run Extract Creator. And what pops out there, if you're using Google Chrome, and I got to point that out, Google Chrome is the preferred browser for this. I'm going to get a JSON payload that looks just like this. And what you can do in Google Chrome, and hopefully everybody can still see my screen well. I'm just going to go up to File, Save Page As. And I'm just going to say, Florida tracks .csv, not the convenience store. And then all files. And very important, change that from JSON to all files in Chrome. And then you'll click Save. And then you should get a pop-up or your Excel sheet open if you're, depending on how your settings in your computer are, or it would be in your downloads folder. And what you essentially have is a CSV with JSON formatting. And this is a very important step. So if you're interested in this, pay attention. You want to go to find replace. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to replace all of those brackets. So the left and right bracket, I'm going to replace the left and right bracket with nothing. I'm going to do the same thing with the right bracket, replace that with nothing. Okay, and then I'm going to take the quotes out, replace that with nothing. Now, for some of you, there may be an easier way, obviously, to pull this, but we have every single census tract in Florida. And if you wanted to, do some other things, with data, I'm sure there's a lot of really data literate people on the call. You could just say copy. So this field here has, if you're thinking about prep, this field here has, the census tract, county, and state broken out. But if you're thinking ahead to the visualization, you're going to want that county name. And unfortunately, the way that we bring down the data in pretty much all of our tables is going to be just like this. So you're going to want to do something like with text to columns, like just copy that value, paste it over, and then go into data. I won't show you every bit of this, but data, or it might keep disappearing. Text to columns, and then just delimited, next, obviously, comma. And then I can easily do, a drop down with county name. So if I want to look at income by county, there's other things too here. When I go back to the API extract creator, you'll notice on this page, you'll see what are called jam values. We have these to kind of add more information without adding a ton of strings and text to the download. So in this one, we'll see a bunch of -6s and -2s. So if you want to just do another find replace to understand what those are, you can do whichever you like with this Bizin tooltip here. The -2s we would replace with 2 stars, and the -6 is replaced with a hyphen. And that'll give you more information about what each of those mean. So this is, a mostly prepped visualization. I take it a step further. I do things like making sure that, I know census tracts are 6 digits. I'm really weird about stuff like this. So I'll format my cells, and I'll go to custom, and I'll make sure all of those are 6 digits. This is really helpful. By the way, if you're working with New England zip codes, they have a leading 0. So if you're ever working with Tableau, a lot of times it drops leading 0. So just go to, number format custom and do 6 zeros or 5 zeros in that case. And then you'll make sure that they're all standardized in their format and the leading zeros don't get dropped off. Just a quick, I'm sure most of you know that trick, but I'm just being helpful if you don't. So we have the data, we've downloaded it. Like I mentioned, the bake the cake example. Thought I had it up here somewhere. Pull it. Well, theoretically, I have it. It's saved in my file. I thought oh, here it is. So this is what I ended up with in terms of my data prep, in terms of making it look really good for Tableau. So moving on, one real quick step is going back to Google Chrome, is that we have what's called the shapefile creator. You can find it by the link here or in the tab up top. So if you want those shapefiles for Florida, what I'm going to do simply here is, again, in Google Chrome, go down to select track by state. This will not get you all the census tracts in the country. If you want a file of all census tracts in the country in a shapefile, we can certainly send that to you. We have one that we can provide. And then you would just drop down to Florida and just click this picture. And then boom, I've got my shapefile saved right there. And then I'll open that up, unzip it, and then that's what you'll do is essentially in Tableau, when I get to that visualization here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add spatial file, and then that'll be in my downloads folder. So just go to the downloads, and you'll see CB tracked and the shape will pop up. And that's what I've downloaded. And so I'd add that to the visualization. And then what I would do is I would join that on, if you're using that version of a shapefile, which is called a cartograph, I'm not going to get into GIS speak too much, but you'll see what's called AFF GeoID. You'll want to make sure that you join it with AFF GeoID and GeoID. These are the kind of like, if you're going back to Microsoft Access days, primary keys, this will allow you to do that nice inner join to make sure that you're joining your data file with the shape file. And then from there, I quickly created a visualization, and Gerson and I, we probably did this in, the whole process ourselves in about 3 to 4 minutes from downloading the data to getting to this point. So all we would do here, if you're working with shape files, so I'll go down to my, if you haven't worked with one before, usually it's a collection of geometry or polygons. So you will just double click geometry, and then that'll give you a Latin long and highlight all of the shape files for each census tract. And what'll happen if you don't have any identifiers in there, you'll need to drag in some identifiers. It'll look like one big shape file. So from either your data file or your shape file, you're going to want to drag in unique identifiers. So like county name, census tract, or just name. So you notice I have name in here, and that's going to give me something that differentiates each one from another. And note with census tracts, each county has a census tract 1. So you can't just drag the census tract number in. You'll have to drag in also that county to differentiate it from the census tract 1, say in Orange County versus Miami-Dade County. Same was true with the national map. If you're using shape files, there's a lot of Washington counties out there. So you'll get 20 Washington counties pop up if you just drag in county name on a national map. So very easily with this, then I just dragged in median household income. Once I formatted my data, just dragged it in on color, changed the color. I'm showing a filter so I can, if I want to just quickly look at, if I'm targeting real estate, I want to look at maybe an area that's over 100,000 people, or sorry, $100,000 in median household income, and my computer's running slow. I'm sure you get the gist of this. You can really quickly look at the areas that have that threshold of income. I can also, because I did the text to columns and separated out the county names, I can look at Orange County and that same threshold. So I can just drop down here. Ooh, it's running slow. So much for a 64 gig MacBook.
Yeah, well, when you're presenting, something's always going to come up, right?
Right. I'll just click on Orange County and well, I already clicked on it, so let's see if it pops up. Awesome.
Or you're getting encouraged on the chat. They're saying live demos are always fun. So
I know. Thank you, everyone. Can I just click on one county here? Any county? But you get the gist. It would show. Let me just. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
There's Orange County. Yay. So those would be what I've done in the maps. If you have not done a lot of work with mapping in Tableau, it's come such a long way since Gerson and I began working with maps in Tableau, especially with the addition of Mapbox. But you can see these are the areas. We added some layers. You would just look at map layers. You can add all these different interests, points of interest even. So that might show you some cool things that pop up on the map, might not. But these would be the areas that have a median household income over 100,000 or more. You can obviously do that conversely as well. So there's a lot of really neat things you can do with one. And mind you, this is only one variable. I very rarely, I know we showed you the Irish viz and it was also green, but we rarely build a visualization with just one single visualization or one single variable. But what you can do is using the API extract creator, you can go through and pick, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things. And this might be just one component of a dashboard. And then you might have, if you're working in real estate, you might have gross rent, you might have, number of occupants in each structure, your structure built. You might want to have all of that and build a dashboard and that with different visualizations or different variables that are, populating a map or table or chart or whatever. So there's a lot of things you can do, but I think one of the main things that to understand from this presentation is that there's a lot of data. We have it for you, and you can grab these shape files and make a visualization really effective and easy to work with in a very, 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 very short period of time if you just give it a whirl. Gerson, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, and it just
we're running a little short of time, so
sure. Just if nothing else, you see through that extract creator, although it's kind of a crude tool right now, you can always pull in select data points and then add it to what you have existing if the geographies match up, or maybe you take your existing dashboard and add a layer of geography, knowing what's available at what level now. A lot of these presentations we do have to disconnect between the public and the Census Bureau is like what's actually available. And there are quite a bit of variables available that might fit a particular need. Again, we have that data dissemination specialist network, which is like kind of like your first stop. But if it's API related, visualization related, you can also shoot us an email.
Absolutely. So, and we can make, this visualization, I think sometimes it's good. Like I know that I've done a ton of learning myself. I don't know why this is not resetting. A ton of learning myself by just looking at other people's visualizations, like deconstructing them. So I think if you'd like a copy of this and you want to be able to just kind of, again, remember how did he do that join? That's something we can certainly provide too. This is a very, very small file. So we can provide that for you as well, including the track file and the data file that we prepped here too. We can provide that to the tug group.
Okay,
so
we're getting requests on the chat from
Sure.
for copies of just to clarify, did people asking a question, a copy of this actual workbook, this quick TWIBX we worked up, or the presentation in general?
We can do both.
Yeah, we can do both. So there you go. Somebody said both. Thanks, Emily. And also there was a question on guidelines for colors in our visualizations as far as ADA compliance and stuff. We actually quite often go a step above even the requirements we're given inside of Census and Ryan always makes fun of me for going to long lengths to test color blindness testing. I do that in Photoshop, and you can use other tools as well to really make sure that we're being as compliant as possible. Also,
Absolutely.
We made data available at, in tabular formats for screen readers and things like that when a visualization might not suffice. So we go a long way, and we do a lot in that area because, quite frankly, we have to and we like to, and part of our job.
Yeah, and you can find a lot more about like Section 508 compliance at ada.gov. But pretty much everything published on a government website is required by the ADA to be accessible in many formats. And again, it's another area that Tableau has grown immensely. And when we first started using it, some of that was very challenging. But things like using captions, I know that that's available in Tableau now, where you can, and then even like alt text when you're making a dashboard and you're bringing an image in, so that alt text is picked up by a screen reader. There's a lot of steps that we take to make sure that their visualizations are accessible. So yeah, that's a great question.
And there's different people are chiming in with questions on colorblind suggestions and things like that. I just dropped a link to a blog that actually Tableau had up. There's also different engines. I think Color Brewer. There's different ones you can search as far as having palettes that kind of fit the need. The main thing that we realize when we're testing is, not every color is super colorblind friendly, but you can get, in a lot of cases, you can nudge the contrast. And sometimes we even have to get down to the hex code level to really create better contrast when you are dealing with that colorblind capability.
Yep.
And also the legend. The legend comes in handy when there are slight variations in contrast. How do you spell out the legend? That also helps quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is an example of one that we obviously made sure was very, there's also other issues that when we do a national map, a lot of times people are just used to seeing, like red and blue, and obviously that has political implications. So there's a lot more implications even than just 508. There's also being design sensitive, which we always take into account, making sure that the color choices that we make don't have an implication that was not meant to be. So there's a lot that goes into that. So especially if you're doing public facing visualization, with Gerson and I do, there's a lot more than even just ADA, a lot of layers that we have to think about. So this is a visualization. I think in years past when they've released some of these maps, some of them might have shown a red and blue. Wasn't us, but it might have been. And we might have seen others created that were showing, because a lot of times people think, red is cautionary and blue is not. So they would use red to maybe show a decline and blue or green to show a growth. And red is also sometimes a big no-no, depending on the shade and variant of red you use. Very challenging to use in terms of 508 compliance.
Yeah, so if we circle back to the presentation now, Ryan.
Sure. Again, just wrap up this slide quick, some of the best practices. This is just an example of one of our visualizations and using Tableau Prep. And I want to just shout out to Tableau Prep. I love it. I use it all the time. This is not a sales pitch for Tableau, by the way, but I really love Tableau Prep. I think it's the most amazing. It's been like life-changing for me doing the data science work that I do. It's so easy to use, and I can do like 50 pivots in one visualization and not have to really kill myself over it. But making sure that you work with our data and you prep the data is the key to having a good visualization. Our data doesn't always come out in the way that works well with Tableau. Kind of think of those things that I talked through the presentation today, and bear with it. Always come back to the data source or write the calc to make sure it works well for you. Gerson?
Basically, these are what you're looking at now as additional resources. Actually, if we just go back for a second, there are some different tutorials on Census Academy.
Right here? Yep.
Yeah. And then also Tableau Public, obviously I've shared that link. Our DataViz newsletter to keep up with what we're up to, not only us, but other people visualizing at the Census Bureau. People are asking also about recommendations for Tableau Prep. I know that we did well going to sessions at the conference at TC, at the Tableau conference. I think that's where we picked up a lot of it. And then a lot of it is just kind of, trial and error, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And Ryan's taken the lead on that in many of our visualizations. But yeah, if we find any resources or if anybody else wants to chime in on the chat as far as Tableau Prep, we're all ears.
Yeah, for me, it was just a lot of trial and error, but I think it's not as intuitive as using Tableau, but there are some training resources on Tableau's website too. I know Gerson and I actually were a part of, what was it called? Project Maestro. We were part of the precursor to Tableau Prep. And so we were part of that kind of beta program and using it. And so it's a really cool project and product. So if you have a lot of needs where especially when you're commingling a lot of different tables and data sources, it's a really cool product, because I basically, and I didn't mention this in the call so far, but I have to do so many pivots and some visualizations. There's one visualization that we've done where I think I had like 13 different pivoted tables that I had to pivot to join together. If that makes sense to anybody out there, I'm sure it does. But it was before Tableau Prep, so I had to do all these pivots in Excel and then join them and then do another pivot to pivot it back so I can get like over 1 million rows or something like that. But there's something crazy that it just took me hours and hours and hours, where it's something with Tableau Prep I could have just done on the fly. with just bringing in the 13 tables, doing pivot 1 to 13, and then doing the join and the output. So it's pretty cool. It's not just pivoting. There's a ton of things you can do in there too, in terms of prep and data format and stylizing. So it's really neat. I like it a lot. I think I've mentioned that a lot too. So I'll move on. And then I guess if there's any other questions, but here's our contact information. I'm sure Gerson's dropped a lot of it in the chat, and I'm sure it's available on LinkedIn as well, but feel free to jot this down and get in touch with us if you need to. If you have any further questions. Gerson?
I'm looking at the chat. We're clear for right now. If anybody has any questions, we could certainly take them as time permits.
I have a question. This is Jamil. So you guys have done anything with the DMAs? Anything that, marketing folks that work with DMAs can use the API, or maybe you have any clients that have used DMAs with this type of data?
Gerson?
Well, the DMAs, I know that we've done some. I'm trying to think and speak correctly here. At the Census Bureau, all those geographies that we were showcasing in the example and that drop down, they're available, but we don't necessarily always group things by DMAs. I used to work with a lot of radio people who would constantly ask. What we ended up doing a lot when I was a data dissemination specialist is rebuilding those, just by the counties that are included in the DMAs. So you would just select for instance, in Atlanta, it varies. The actual metro statistical area of Atlanta, which is a geography we do have, is 29 counties now. So that's, and most people don't think of it that way. And the DMA is something different, and so on and so forth. So that's why our approach to that at Census usually is we just make it all available individually, and people would have to rebuild it just county by county, which isn't hard to do. And you can even group it in Tableau in probably some creative ways as well.
You can do calcs in Tableau too to do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that ourselves, but because we just kind of report data as it's disseminated. But you can do calcs and combine, a couple census tracts to a city or to a county, and it does work.
Thank you.
Yep. I have a question from David Hall.
Yes, I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now with this.
Sure.
With you guys, I'm with the FAA, and to kind of put things in scope, the passenger disruptions pre-COVID was 20 incidents per 1,000 flights. Today, post-COVID, we're hitting close to 200 events per 1,000 flights.
Wow.
So I'm sure people seen, on the news, some of these things. We're currently, we're slammed with legal right now, putting cases together for legal and stuff. But there's a time coming very soon where Congress is going to mandate more of a root cause to these events. So that's kind of leading me to my thinking out loud here. So we know the patient, we know who the trying to, a lot of this is FOIA data, so I got to be kind of real careful with it. So if you kind of can piece all these events together, where the basically the flying public that have these events, and use you guys as data, maybe drill down to certain areas, maybe look at income level. I know Congress is hinting around at mental health issues. So what areas of these areas have health departments nearby, don't have health departments nearby, stuff like that. So
yeah,
basically I'm saying, if I took that data, tied it with your data, trying to answer some of these root cause questions, it's going to be coming, as a Congress mandate out to us in the very near future.
Yeah, and that's a very good question, very good point. I actually had no idea the incidents had grown that high. I'd seen the anecdotes on TV, but what I would say with any any use of our data, you can always, if there's certain characteristics or, this would apply in any industry too. If there's a, target market or whatever, you can always, tie those, statistics and, kind of look at where those might, match up with certain areas. But, it's definitely kind of still something that we encourage people to do in all industries. But I would say if you have a target demographic, a target, income level, again, that's something I used to do when I worked on political campaigns. It's what I do when I work with nonprofits now. They might use census data to, send out a flyer to a, that asks for one type of donation request to one zip code, and then another zip code, it might be a completely different donation request, and even how you image and language and everything else. So there's a lot of different ways you can use census data, and I hope that somewhat answers your question. Gerson, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm going to make a suggestion here to build on what you're saying, Ryan. In cases that are similar to that question just now, and when people are looking for different data, one thing I always encourage is use that first email you see on the slide right there, census.askdata@census.gov. The good thing about that mailbox is from there, a couple people who monitor that, several people actually, will be able to redirect the question to the appropriate audience at Census Bureau, the appropriate person with that kind of expertise. And what I would say is try to compile as best you can your data wish list. Whether or not you know it exists or not, that's why I call it a wish list. Put together the data point wish list that you would like, send it to census.askdata@census.gov, along with the geographic level you're looking for. And then we're going to try our best to get that to the right person and to get your questions answered on whether that data A exists, and B, where you can access it, and C, at what level.
Yep.
Now, I think we're probably running close to time, if not over. So Katie, Jeffrey, Yamil, if you guys want to jump in here and let us know what the next step is.
So we are over. We have 52 people still on the line. So I think they would take your time, as much time as you guys want to offer, but totally understand if it's time to go grab lunch or do something else too.
I just wanted to make sure that you had other slides to cover. So
yeah, what I have, we have some job postings in the area, and then we have our teaser for next month. I can put that up real quick, but
sure.
Otherwise we are good to call it a day. So.
Our friend Ben.
Yes, come back next month.
We probably will.
Same day of the week. Yes, so next July, in July, we will have Ben Jones communicating data well. It's going to be another really good session. So please come back. And then we'll send this out, but there's just some Tableau job opportunities in Orlando area. So we have one at Fairwinds for a business intelligence developer, one for a director level at Wycliffe. And I think there's some Wycliffe people on the call. One for Deloitte doing senior visualization, and then another one at Exist RX. So there's quite a few in here this month. Oh, and another one at Disney for senior level. And then we have all our resources here that we always have, and then the DLC, which is a pretty new initiative. So take a look at that. And that is it. So we will close it out. Thank you both for all your time. Obviously, people loved it. You have a lot of fan mail in the chat. So thank you again. And we will, they have the recording we'll post on the YouTube channel, and then we will see everybody in July.